Okay. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us for the September Live Well Learning Collaborative. Today we have a talk on child passenger safety by Nicole Barnett, who's from the Allegheny County Health Department Injury Prevention Project, Traffic and Injury Prevention Project, actually, and Kristen Urso from the PA chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Before we get into the presentation today, I'm going to go over a high-level overview of the Live Well Allegheny initiative. So Live Well Allegheny is the countywide campaign to improve the health and wellness of Allegheny County residents. We do this through partnerships with municipalities, schools, workplaces, restaurants, and community partners. This initiative was started to help improve the 3 healthy behaviors that actually reduce chronic disease, which include physical activity, not smoking, and eating a healthy diet, among other things. We have Live Well partner resources available, which include our resource guide on our website, which you can search keywords such as hiking, swimming, or eating well to find partners that can help you with that goal. We also have a e-update that gets sent regularly to our partners and the monthly Learning Collaborative series. We also have a special campaign going on right now called the Rethink Your Drink campaign, which is a campaign that was launched this past year to help educate residents about the effects of consuming sugar-sweetened beverages and to encourage healthier beverages choices. We have resources available to our partners that include our Rethink Your Drink toolkit, some campaign materials that can be requested, such as water bottles and stickers, social media messaging, and campaign videos. You can find all of that on our website at www.livewellallegheny.com/rethinkyourdrink. So if you aren't already a Live Well member, you can join us if you want to contact me and we can get started, or check out our website. So now I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to be passing the presentation over to Nicole and Kristen.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is Kristen Urso. As Tori said, I'm with the Pennsylvania chapter, American Academy of Pediatrics, and through that manage the PennDOT grant. So our project is called TIP, or the Traffic Injury Prevention Project. I cover 10 counties here in Southwestern PA and frequently work with Nicole in many of our different traffic safety settings. So we're excited to share this information with you today. This is information commonly shared with first responders, other community-based agency, like-minded groups, our hospital partners, as well as our pediatricians. Those are kind of our pockets of information for sharing this information, because it's our hopes if they can't use it professionally or personally, they have the resources to share it to family members and parents who may need it. So we're going to look over the child passenger safety laws, enhance what we know from our laws and look at best practice recommendations, show you some different features of seats and how to use those seats, as well as do they have expirations? Are they maybe a fake counter seat? All the information that, again, can be shared both professionally and personally. So here in Pennsylvania, we focus on child restraint or child passenger safety. PennDOT still believes that this is a fight worth fighting, that we are able to look at the bottom bullet there in our last 4-year study and find that 83% of kids under the age of 4 who were involved in a crash and were restrained in their car seats sustained no injury. So in our traffic safety world, we know not every crash is survivable. There's no perfection when it comes to a child in a seat and the seat in the vehicle, but it's preparing that child who can't help themselves to be the best they can and be able to survive a crash to the best they can if that is to happen. So the CDC prints out a colorful chart. You can see the blue boxes include unintentional injury, which is where motor vehicle crash deaths occur or are labeled within these different subjects. So basically, from 1 to 44, primary reason for those unintentional injury deaths would be looped under unintentional injury, including motor vehicle. And we really like to point out that, especially from 5 to about the 24 ending age range, that's your kids that may be getting out of a booster, maybe a little too soon, especially if they're right at that 5-year-old mark. It also then loops us into categories of people being teen drivers, riding with teen drivers, and not really hitting that brain development until the late 20s. So risk reduction, again, nothing is perfect. When we start off with infant seats or rear facing only seats, as they're typically called in the industry now, that is the best layer of safety for a child. Rear facing only, they have a 5-point harness to hold the child in. They're facing the rear of the vehicle. And because most crashes are frontal, this supports them the best way possible. There's also additional pieces and comfort levels that come with the seat that can really support and enhance the safety features for the child. So infant seats are going to be our best layer of protection. Every step away from that infant seat sheds a layer of safety. So when they go forward facing, now we're exposing them to the direction of where the crash occurs. So we're looking at maybe some spinal cord injuries, whiplash motion, especially in those kids that are too little to survive that and don't have that proper structure or build. All the way down to our booster seats. Again, the booster seat may not even be installed. So it's really just placing the child in an adult fitting seatbelt. And so you can naturally see that layer of safety going away each step down from an infant seat. So 5 ways that restraints or child car seats prevent injury, prevent ejection from within the car and certainly outside to the around the crash site. They contact the strongest parts of the body of the child at the hips and the shoulder. Spread forces over a wide area, which reduces specific internal damages and larger injuries. It helps the body to ride down the crash, so kind of cradling or rocketing down with the car seat instead of an abrupt stop. And then the seats protect the head, neck, and spinal cord. So here in Pennsylvania, we have 3 laws that are enforceable, 3 laws that are primary. These 3 laws are the age 2, age 4, and age 8. So children need to be rear facing until they are age 2. They need to be in a harness seat, a 5-point harness seat until they are 4. And then they need to be in a booster until they are 8. So nothing else has to be going on inside the vehicle for an officer to see. Maybe a child is too small for the seat they're in. Maybe they're facing the wrong direction. Certainly if they're not in a seat at all. These are all primary laws, which is great for our industry to recognize that, there is a need for safety. And those kids, again, cannot protect themselves. So we need to create laws that will enforce that. It sounds a little crazy. If you have shopped car seats in a while, you know that harnesses go up past protecting maybe a child that's 4 years old. Maybe a booster goes up protecting a child more than 8 years old based on their size. So this is just a starting point. This is what's enforceable for the law 2, 4, and 8. These fines will range from about $140 to $175 per child that is found to either be in the in no seat at all or potentially in the wrong seat. And we're coming up on National Child Passenger Safety Week next week. So this is a great educational time here in Pennsylvania. A lot of enforcement dollars, grant dollars are being spent for extra crews out on the road to basically alert parents what the laws are, what best practices, and how to gain community resources if they need them. Now, saying that, education may be enough for some. We have a category of people that get pulled over by the cops, they're told what they did wrong, they change their behavior, right? Then we have another group that maybe doesn't care, thinks they won't get caught again, and their kid is just safe the way they are because they're a good driver. We've pretty much heard all the excuses out there, but the fortunate thing with this is education, yes, can absolutely be great for families and work really well. If enforcement is provided, the dollars collected from the fines are put into a bank at PennDOT. Dollar for dollar is provided back to our agency for loan seats. So I said earlier that I cover 10 counties. I have about 46 or 47 loan programs right now. We keep growing. And those loan programs are community-based agencies. They may be police, fire, EMS groups. A couple of our birthing center hospitals have access to loan seats. And those are seats that they get for no charge, thanks to the fees collected from, pushing these laws to be enforced. So it's nice to know that somebody may have to pay for that, but we're able to put that money to good use and continue to provide seats in the community as needed. I will just point out that bottom blue box does say that right in the law, in the vehicle code, the car seat must be used as designated by the manufacturer. So that's another education or enforceable comment that the officer can provide if they find out the seat is expired, if it's missing parts that are crucial to the install. This is really, we're really lucky here in Pennsylvania to have the laws that we do. And some of our officers on the road have received either training like this to kind of remind them of what to look for, what to be, aware of. Many of our officers are also child passenger safety technicians, meaning they've taken a 4-day course, to become certified in this information. So we talked about the laws. We want to look at best practice. The American Academy of Pediatrics basically wants you to get your money's worth out of the seat as long as the child fits within the weight and height recommendations. So any of these changes, once the weight or the height max is met, they would want to move the child to the next seat. So we start off with rear facing onlys. Again, this is your 5-point harness facing the rear of the vehicle, probably the most comfiest, cushiest kind of seat that you can think of. This could be a true infant seat with a carrier that the child is taken in and out of in a part of the car seat, or it could be a convertible that maybe starts rear facing and then goes forward facing again to get some money's worth out of it. So rear face until they meet the maximum weight or height, and then forward face until they meet the maximum weight or height in that 5-point harness seat. Once they are out of the forward-facing harness, we want them to use a booster. Booster seats are used to boost the child into the adult fitting seatbelt. So if you know nothing about cars, you can know today after this presentation, every seatbelt in your vehicle is made to fit somebody who's 4'9". So if somebody is not 4'9", particularly our little kids eager to get out of their boosters, maybe even eager to get into a booster, the booster will not help them it will help them to fit into that adult fitting seatbelt. So boosters want to be used typically until they hit that 4'9". It's just that good mark to know the seatbelt will fit them. Generally just an age range for your information, we see that between 8 and 12. And then we move them into the adult fitting seatbelt only. We do many school programs. You will see third graders of all shapes and sizes, and you will see kids kind of split down evenly in the classroom as to if they're still in a booster or not. So it's a learning opportunity for us to take that specific age group and look at, hey, it's not just your age. We have to look at the height that you are, because we need that seatbelt to sit where it should and properly fit you. The third bullet there tells you that all children younger than 13 should be restrained in the rear seat of the vehicle. This is a common piece that people relate to the law, and it's actually not part of our law. It is just best practice. And that has to do with everything we've heard up until this point, that most crashes are frontal. There's features in the front seat that support an adult passenger, somebody who's 4'9", has went through puberty and has bone ossification, nice strength joints. That is not typically the best seat for somebody who's under 13. So without getting too detailed in those and saying, they should be this weight, this height, age is easier to enforce when it comes to our laws, and it's easier to enforce as this best practice statement as well. The other piece of the 13-year-old is if you have a child fighting you, Nicole always shares this pretty eloquently, that if you don't want to be the bad guy, show them the sun visor in your vehicle. There's probably an airbag warning up front that encourages them under the age of 13 to stay in the back. So vehicle manufacturers are supporting those parents out there with kids that want to rush up in the front seat. This is a great colorful image for any parent who's a planner, who wants to know an average of when they will need each seat at what age. You can see how big the ranges are because we have rear facing seats that go up to 50, 55 pounds now. We have forward facing harness seats that go up to 65 pounds. We have boosters that go up to 100 or 120 pounds. So those ranges are big and not as specific, so that, again, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration can have every state use these no matter what their car seat laws are, and certainly cover the best practice as well. So 5 elements for a correct installation. These are the 5 key pieces that we go through at a car seat check with a family. So I told you a little bit about our law enforcement officers who may be child passenger safety technicians. That is a 4-day course. Many of our technicians will come out of that course ready to trap a parent in a corner for 2 hours and explain everything they just learned. And the reality is, we want these community car seat checks that we hold and sponsor and participate in to be effective and to get all the parents the answers that they need. But we also want it to move timely because they may have more than one seat, or we may have more than one appointment every half hour. So selection of the seat, does the seat fit for the child? So weight and height are certainly categories. We want to see the minimum and maximum of those being met. Developmental levels for the child are crucial. We need to make sure that a conventional car seat you can buy out in the store is going to work if they maybe have a developmental level or need that needs addressed. Age is also on there because we do have some manufacturers that encourage holding back on forward facing till 2. So they kind of follow our state laws here. Or they hold kids out of boosters until 4. And again, following the laws that we have here. So that's why age is listed. Direction of the seat, are we going to place it rear facing, forward facing? What does the parent want to follow? The laws or beyond that for best practice? Location in the vehicle for the car seat is crucial because many times we see one parent and one child in that car seat, but we don't realize that maybe there's other kids that hop in and out. There's some carpooling going on, or maybe it's a brand new baby and we have grandparents coming to visit and need to fit some adult passengers in the back with that car seat. So we try to get the whole story, work our Tetris as best we can. Many times we are faced with multiple car seats and trying to get them all to fit across one bench seat. Harness adjustment and fit. We're going to talk about this. Nicole's going to jump in here shortly and take us through harness and installation in greater detail. But the basics for harness are that when the child is rear facing, the harness shoulder straps come out of the car seat at their shoulder or just below. At is always your goal, but if you have to be a little below to provide that hump over the shoulder, if you will, that is ideal for most manufacturers when it comes to being crash ready. For forward facing, we have the goal of at the shoulder level, but slightly above if there's no direct slot at the shoulder level for a forward facing child. And then we want the harness to fit snug and lay flat. And we'll talk about how we test that here shortly. The installation of the car seat is just as crucial as the fit of the child in the seat. We want that seat to be installed using the correct belt path. Some of our convertible seats that I mentioned have two belt paths, one that you use for rear facing, one that you use for forward facing. So we have many common misuses with using the wrong belt path. We want to make sure that's correct. And then more is not better in the car seat world. About 98%, 99% of our seats on the market would like you to choose one system or the other. So that belt path we just talked about, using the right one, either the seatbelt goes through there or the latch goes through there, and not using both systems in one belt path. Then tightness of our install, we are looking for less than 1 inch of movement. If you've been around car seats or have kids of your own, many years ago, we tightened them so tightly that you went to check at the belt path and you would literally shake the car. Manufacturers have stepped back a little bit and said, you know what, these are largely plastic. We certainly don't want you putting an adult body weight entirely into the seat to tighten it. Just a nice good forearm, maybe your two hands while the parent tightens the belt. We can have up to 1 inch movement, and that is side to side or front and back when testing at the belt path. All right, so Nicole, do you want to start from here and tell them why we should have kids ride rear facing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so far, Kristen. So why kids should travel rear facing? Kristen has eloquently mentioned it a few times so far, but our kiddos are safer when they are sitting rear facing versus forward facing. And if you take a look at this GIF that is repeating on your screen here, you can see this is a simulation of a crash test that you can see where the rear facing kiddo is more cradled in their seat versus the way that someone who's sitting forward facing, their arms, their head, and their neck sort of splay forward. So the longer that you sit rear facing, if we could all sit rear facing in the car, we would be much safer. But you can see here that the shell of the car seat spreads the crash forces along the entirety of the head, neck, and back, which for our younger kids is really important for making sure that they have survivable injuries if they have any injuries in a crash. So different types of seats. So rear facing only seats. So you're someone who has not messed with car seats too much. This is sort of a car seat that you're familiar seeing. This car seat only goes one direction based on the name. It's rear facing only. They have ranges anywhere from 3 pounds to 35 pounds. The head should be at least 1 inch below the top of the shell. You should make sure that the baby's head is well contained within the car seat to make sure that they're not their head is still staying safe. Parents love to keep babies in this a little bit longer because these car seats usually click into a stroller. But if you see a baby in here where their knees are bent over the side and their head is covering this, let's see if I can get my mouse, this little label that's up here, if their head's covering that, I would almost put money on the fact that these kiddos have outgrown their rear facing seat. You want to use an assembly recline position, which we'll talk about our recline angles here in a moment. And here's a really good visual of what at or below looks like for a rear facing kiddo. You want the harness to come out of the shell. Like I said, either at or below is your gray area. And you can see here, this is a really good example of the hump over the shoulder that helps keep those rear facing kiddos inside of the car seat shell. After a kiddo has outgrown the rear facing only seat, they usually move to a rear facing convertible. So this car seat usually converts rear facing and forward facing. So some of the upper weight limits can be anywhere from 35 to 50 pounds. Some of them are meant to keep kiddos, again, extended rear facing, which we'll look at a few different seats here in a moment. You want to make sure that you use the rear facing direction to the highest height or weight allowed by the manufacturer. Like Kristen mentioned before, American Academy of Pediatrics, their best practice suggests to really get your use out of the seat. You paid for it, it goes up to 40 pounds. You want to keep that 40-pound kiddo rear facing. And again, you still want to use rear-facing seats in a semi-reclined position. So recline angles. Previous to myself becoming a car seat tech, it used to be that you would have to get into a car and get an acclimator out to try to figure out that 35 to 45 degree angle. And that angle is important because you want to make sure that the baby's airway is kept open. You don't want them to be sitting up so far that their head slumps forward and blocks that airway they would have. So instead of having an inclinometer, the car seat manufacturers are now giving you things on the car seat to show you what is the correct angle. And they can be either higher tech ones, so you can see the ball that rolls into a certain color. You can see the bubble level if someone is, excited about construction. Same sort of concept there. You want to make sure that the bubble is in between the two lines. You can have a pendulum, or it could be as low tech as what you see on the bottom there, where it's just a printed line on the car seat, and it says that this line must be flat. So you always want to make sure that you follow whatever the car seat manufacturer instructions are, and using these angle indicators. Other rear-facing only talking points. Again, you want to make sure that we never ever place a rear-facing car seat in the front vehicle seat with an active passenger side airbag. The force of that biggest airbag that's in the car up against a rear-facing seat means that the rear-facing seat cannot perform the physics that it's meant to in a crash. That airbag actually counteracts against it. So we never want to put a rear-facing seat in front of a big passenger side airbag. Children are significantly less likely to be injured or die if they're riding in a rear-facing crash. Again, if we could all ride rear-facing, we'd be much safer. But so that's why we want to keep kids rear-facing as long as possible. And again, always follow the car seat manufacturer's instructions. Label information. Labels are important. If you've ever looked at a car seat, you'll look at it and go, wow, there are a lot of stickers and a lot of things on here. But they have a lot of stuff, and it's all very important information. You can see an airbag sticker what I just reiterated about how important it is to not be in front of that airbag. There is a label that goes on every rear-facing car seat that says, do not put this in front of an airbag. You want to make sure that there's basic use and warning info. There's info about the manufacturer's identification and the 213 certification. You'll hear me mention it here in a second. FMVSS 213, or Federal Motor Vehicle Standards 213. That is the standards that all car seats have to meet based from the federal government. And the model number, name, expiration date. Again, all of this stuff has to be on there, which will be important here in a few slides. Along with the car seat registration, the postcard that you see at the bottom usually comes attached to every harness that you get whenever you buy a brand new car seat, and it's important to register in case there are recalls. This spring, there was a series of recalls that came through, and people that registered their car seats got an email faster than what we found out from the news. So they're not really going to sell your information, but if you do have a car seat, you want to make sure you register it so you get the manufacturer's info if there's any recalls right away. And if you have a seat, didn't have the registration card for any reason, you can use the info on the car seat and then go to safercar.gov, and you'll be able to register it online through there or through the manufacturer's website. So let's go over some seats that we could talk about. So these are some sort of specialty seats. The Summer Infant Affirm, this is a car seat that is made for a 3-pound baby. So most car seats start about 5 pounds, but if you have a preemie and you're able to leave the hospital for any other reason, technically you would not be using the car seat correctly if it started at 5 pounds. So this car seat starts at 3 pounds. It has a special body insert so that you can put a 3 to 11 pound baby in there. It's got extra harness slots. The carrier weighs under 8 pounds, so it's super lightweight, and actually has a smaller chest clip designed for smaller babies. So then that way, if you would have a preemie baby, that chest clip that you see on there doesn't feel like it's swallowing their body whenever you install them in there. Another car seat that is available that goes down to 3 pounds is the Evenflo Light Max and Safe Max. And you heard Kristen mention the loan programs that are available, the 42 loan programs that are in the area here. they actually should have a couple of these seats still available. This was our loan program seat for a while. So if you were trying to leave the hospital or had a need for a seat for a 3-pound baby, these are conventional seats that are out and available. And you can see the last bullet, all of the head pillows, the harness covers, the buckle pad are all optional for this particular model of seats. And again, that has to do with fitting a teeny tiny baby inside of these car seats. So those are the teeny tiny babies. So let's flip to the other side and look at the extended rear facing. This is another, path that some people are very excited about taking. Some people are very adamant that they will be rear facing their kiddos as long as possible, which love to hear it. Because again, if we could all sit rear facing, we would be much safer. So here we have two of our higher end seats, the Kleck Foomph, which I hope you laughed at that name because you should. The Kleck has some great names. But you can see here, you can rear face up to 50 pounds. And then same thing with the Nuna Rava that's below. You can rear face this baby up to 50 pounds. So you can see what looks about a 4-year-old at the top who's nice and comfy up there. Even with her legs a little bent, still nice and comfy. And you can see probably an 8-month-old in the same seat right below them. And you can see for forward facing, which we'll talk in a second, forward facing right now, the limit on the market is 65 pounds. So the highest weight you'll get for forward facing is 65 pounds. So the first two, and then this top one up here, the Diono Rainier, also extends up to 50 pounds. Those are the more higher end seats. Those seats market anywhere between $500 to $700 to get one of those seats. However, there are still some seats that are on the market that exist where you don't have to be a millionaire to try to extended rear face your kid. The Safety First Grow and Go, again, you can extended rear face up to 50 pounds, and it has a forward facing and a booster seat. This retails for a little bit over $200. And I have one of these seats in my library right now. It's a great seat. Love it. Same thing with the Graco Extended Fit. This is a seat probably that more people are familiar with. It has this extended legroom panel so that kids have a little bit more room to do that crisscross applesauce. But again, rear face still 50 pounds and forward face up to 65 pounds. As well as when you talk about extended rear facing, some rear facing seats do this. You can see, if you look at the picture of the Kiko Fit 2 here at the bottom, there's actually an arm in the infant base that moves. So then that way that the infant carrier clicks in at a little bit different angle. So it gives a little bit more room for those older kiddos that are closer to outgrowing that seat. Some rules for when you're securing a rear-facing kiddo in a seat. You want to make sure their back and bottom is flat into the car seat. We don't want any plank children trying to not get in there. And again, arm harness at or below shoulders for rear-facing. And you want to make sure the retainer clip is at armpit level and their head is well contained within the car seat. The pinch test. So if you have installed kiddos in the car, within the past 10 years or before, you might have known to try to slip maybe 2 fingers underneath of the harness to see if it's tight enough. That is an older method. Our new method that we now use is the pinch test. So what you want to do, like this picture, is you want to grab a hold of the harness strap when it's tightened, and you want to try to pinch it, and you want to have the pinch just slide out of your fingers. If you're able to grab both pieces of webbing and actually pinch some of the webbing together, it's too tight. Or too loose, sorry, it's too loose. You do not want to be able to pinch it together. You want it to just slide out of your fingers. And that is when the straps are tight enough. Excuse me. So newborn inserts. So Kristen and I work with tons of different seats and manufacturers and brands. And if you take nothing from this talk today, please know that no matter what it is, please always, always, always follow the manufacturer's instructions. Everything has different rules. To this particular slide, we're talking about newborn inserts. So just the head and the body pillows that come in with some car seats. They have different rules for every single manufacturer. And even within manufacturer, they might have different rules between models. If you are someone who works with car seats enough, we talk about this when we're like working with nurses at the hospital. I always tell them, like, please don't try to memorize this. There's so many rules and so many different things. And you can see here on the right side, this is an excerpt of manual from the Kiko, and it has a very specific rule that's between 4 to 11 pounds. Some of them have specific rules. Some of them say when the baby looks uncomfy, you can take it out. Again, there's no need to try to memorize it. If you work with multiple kinds of seats, always, always, always follow the instruction manual. this we'll start to touch on, if it didn't come out of the box, you don't want to use it with the car seat. So we are talking about newborn positioning. Previously, you used to be able to use rolled receiving blankets and even washcloths inside to try and make sure that you have a good position for the newborn. You still are able to do some rolled receiving blankets on the sides. We want them a little bit lower than this picture that we can see here because we don't want any suffocation hazards. We don't ever want to add anything around the top of the baby's head, and this washcloth here that you can see at the crotch buckle is starting to become more of a no-go. Again, if it didn't come out of the box, we don't want to use it with the car seat, especially now as more manufacturers are giving us more things to use with the car seat instead of us having to, go find a washcloth or something. So that was all the rear facing. So these are some forward facing seats. As I mentioned before, forward facing car seats, their max harness height right now is 65 pounds for car seats that you can get on the conventional market. Once they have outgrown their rear facing seat, we move them to either convertible or in their convertible in the forward facing mode, or in a combination seat, which is a forward facing car seat and a booster seat that doesn't go rear facing. Again, some of the same things. You want to make sure that they use the full harness height because we want to get your money's worth out of it and keep them as protected as long as possible. And again, make sure that their ears are well below the top of the head restraint. We want to make sure that their head is well contained within those wings there to keep their head and neck safe. So again, now that we've learned about rear facing, some of these rules for forward facing are the same thing. We want to make sure we have a snug harness. The retainer clip will stay at armpit level. The harness goes through a slot that is at or above for forward facing. That is the one difference. And then the top of the ears are level with or below the top of the car seat shell. Again, the difference for harness is at or above for forward facing. Here you can have it come out of the shell either at the kiddos or your gray areas a little bit above. When you're putting a kiddo in a car seat, again, winter is coming, sadly, even more so than it was the last time we did this presentation. But you can see here this top picture, that is the after effect of a crash test with a kiddo with a coat. We want to make sure that we're avoiding bulky clothing, like a North Face fleece or like a fleece jacket is like the thickest that you want to put a kiddo in. A poofy coat hides slack that you don't realize. And in the bottom picture is a really good example of that. On the left-hand side, we have harnessed our friend in the bottom in her seat, nice and snug. In the middle, we put her in her big poofy coat. And then in the last picture, they undid the harness. They didn't move any adjustments. Then they took off her coat and they put her back in the car seat. And you can see how much slack that she actually has. Harnesses don't tighten up when you're in a crash. Our adult seatbelts might, but a kiddo's car seat harness does not tighten up. So we want to make sure that that is as tight as it can be and always ready for a crash. If you've never seen it before and you're more interested, the top picture is a screen grab from a Good Morning America segment a couple years ago, where it's about a 3 or 4 minute video about all the effects and crash tests of kiddos wearing coats. So if you need someone that needs to be convinced, I highly suggest Googling that Good Morning America kids in coats segment. All right, so now we're moving on. We're getting out of the harness seat. We are not rear facing. We're not forward facing anymore. Now we're sitting in a booster seat. This is for whenever a kiddo outgrows the 5-point harness and they're now being boosted up so that the kiddos fit the adult fitting seatbelt. Because there's never been a seatbelt made for kids. They're all made for adult sized people. Like Kristen said, it starts at 4'9" and 80 pounds. But that is not in every car all of the time, but that's, a starting point for when they can sit in just a seatbelt. But until then, we have the booster seat, and either both a high back and a backless provide some of the same protections. A high back just is a little bit more rigid and gives you a few more guides. You can see the best example here is this shoulder belt guide. Here in the high back booster is up, actually like sort of above the kiddo's shoulder. On a low back booster, it's just this little red thing on a tag. So it might not be enough for a kid just as soon as they're transitioning from a 5-point harness to go right to a low back booster. They might need that high back booster step down just to sort of make sure that seatbelt fits them as best that it can. A few rules: you want to make sure that you never use this with a lap only seatbelt. These are meant to be used with a lap and shoulder belt to give the most amount of protection that we can for these kiddos. And they always need a head restraint behind the child's head. So that might be another use case for a high back versus a low back. If there is no head restraint, say like in the middle bench seat of a van, they might need to use that high back booster because that way they have a head restraint. When putting a kiddo in a booster seat, you want to make sure that the seatbelt fits them and that it goes across their lap and shoulder and across the midpoint of their chest the way it's supposed to. You want to make sure the lap belt's positioned high on the thighs and across the center of the chest, so that the child's knees bend comfortably at the front seat and that their head is positioned correctly. And then here is a 5-step test for making sure see if kiddos are ready to get out of the booster seat. You want to make sure that they can have their back against the vehicle seat, their knees bend easily at the edge of the seat, and their feet are on the floor. Their lap and their shoulder belt fit properly. No one's trying to like put their shoulder belt underneath their arm because it is riding up too high on their neck. And the biggest one is that the kiddo will sit properly. No slouching, no sleeping, no taking off the seatbelt to come up and change the radio. And those are some of those developmental things that Kristen had mentioned that we're talking about when moving from even booster to harness and seatbelt. Want to make sure that they know that the responsibility of sitting there with a seatbelt on while riding in the car. Non-approved products. So I had mentioned it earlier, but if it did not come out of the box with the car seat, we don't want to use it with the car seat. So that includes all of the stuff that they sell on the other side of the baby aisle. So all the mirrors, the hanging toys, the bundle me's that you can see up here in the top right corner, anything that interferes in between the kiddo, the harness, and the shell of the car seat, you don't want to use. So even though our Lammy covers here for the harness straps, they're really cute, but we don't want to use them because it has not been crash tested and we don't know what's going to happen. The only thing that gets a little bit of an asterisk are these seat covers. Some manufacturers don't have any rules. Some manufacturers have very strict rules. Some will say you can use a light towel or blanket. This one I remember from a car seat check a few weeks ago, UPPAbaby Mesa says that you need to use either an UPPAbaby Mesa seat cover or one from Britax. Again, very specific rules. Always check the manual before you know. Again, if it did not come out of the car seat box, you don't want to use it with the car seat. Counterfeit car seats, because if there's money to be made, there's someone to lie about it to make money. Counterfeit and fake car seats are real. Earlier when I was mentioning about all the things that are required from FMVSS 213, the labels, the stickers, all of the different things, those are some of the biggest key signs whenever you're looking for a fake car seat. Sometimes they might have some names and stuff stamped on the labels. A lot of the times if you're looking at it and you're like, this isn't quite right, that's how you know, again, a little bit too good to be true. One other thing, the manufacturer, model name, number, and a US-based phone number have to be printed on it as well. So that's another way to tell if it's a real car seat. On the bottom picture there, you can see the fake car seat is on the left, the real one is on the right. The fake one has like no stickers and just looks a little different. The straps are a different color and are not like the same strength. And it's happening locally. We know of a nurse last week, I believe, who got a fake Doona, which is the car seat stroller. It like collapses with wheels on the bottom of it. She pulled a fake one of those out of West Penn last week. Someone bought it off of Amazon. So they're out there. You want to make sure that you're using a real car seat. Expiration dates. Car seats do expire. It's for multiple reasons, whether components degrade, technology and safety changes, parts can get lost. We always think about like, would you really sit on grandpa's plastic lawn chair that's been on his front porch for 20 years? I know I am a bigger lady. I'm gonna be afraid it's gonna crack underneath me. I'm not doing it. And it's because of like that plastic degrading. And the same thing with car seats. They're mostly plastic. So that like hot and cold in the car for 6 or 7 years, that's gonna degrade some of the plastic. So if it does have an expiration date of anywhere from 6 years to 10 years, make sure that you are not using it past that expiration date. Special needs car seat options. So their special needs car seat options is a whole different ball game. So far, everything that Kristen and I have mentioned are conventional car seats. So conventional car seats means car seats that you are able to go to Walmart and Target and buy or order online from the manufacturer. They cost some money, but it's not, an exorbitant amount of money. And they do have limits. Again, the highest seat that you can buy is up to 65 pounds. So if you need a special needs car seat, like these two car seats that you can see here, it is a special class for car seat technicians to go through, but we have a group of about 20 of us that went through this class. Oh goodness, almost 4 years ago now. So if you ever find any need, a kiddo that will need a car seat like this, they're going through PT, OT, they're using a durable medical provider to buy this seat. It can take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to 6 to 8 months to get this provided, and can cost upwards of $3,000 for one of these kind of seats. So it's not just a seat that you can just go get anytime. But if you come across a situation, we will definitely be able to help you sort that situation out. So come find Kristen and I. Another kind of car seat are car beds. So there are 3 different kinds of car beds that are available, and these are typically used in our hospitals for kiddos that can't come home they don't necessarily pass the car seat test, or a whole bunch of other reasons. So there's one here, it's called the Dream Ride, and this is more what parents are used to seeing. But again, you can see the baby can lay down. They can lay in certain directions or on their stomach based on if a doctor allows. Whoops, went too excited. Here's an Angel Ride, and our hospitals, especially our children's hospital friends, like this one a lot because it has no starting weight. So it does not matter how little this kiddo is, they're able to go home. And the last one is the Hope Bed. So this is actually for the bigger kiddos. This requires 2 seat belts and needs to be installed on a bench seat, so no captain's chairs. And it's for our bigger kiddos. These are all examples of special needs car seats, but these are ones that people will use a little bit more often. And again, we hope to not have them in these for a long time. And most of our hospitals, if they have not been, they are going to have the ability to have these on hand as a loan program for them. And I did leave this here. Kristen, would you mind jumping back in and finishing about this study?
You got it. Yep. So, hospital study based out of Oregon looked at parents and their readiness for when the child came, when it came to 2 things: installing the child in the seat and installing the seat in the vehicle. And so what they looked at was 267 families. 93% of the time there was an error. You're fine, Nicole. The errors you see here have to do with positioning the infant on the left and different things that could happen and go wrong there. And then the installation errors on the right. So we typically include this specific study in our hospital discussions because a lot of hospitals want to know how they can help, how they can share the information, but they're not a child passenger safety technician. So what can they do? And we really like to empower our hospitals because this particular issue that you see on the left with the positioning of the child, this is something, they may be the only medical professional that ever has eyes on the car seat and the child together. So if they can continue to share small, correct statements of what we just went over here when it comes to the pinch test and lightweight clothing and being at or below the shoulder level, not using the non-approved products, they may be the only ones that get that information to families. Even before COVID, we had instances where families weren't having run-ins with law enforcement. They weren't coming to our community events, but they also weren't going to their pediatrician well child visits. So short of having the child in the hospital, that was the only medical professionals that had eyes on them. So we really want this information to continue to be shared. And I can tell you most of our hospitals are doing a really great job with this. Every so often, we just get somebody who hasn't been through our training, maybe as a parent, grandparent, dealt with their own kids in car seats in the past 20 years, and just don't realize how much has changed when it comes to kids in car seats. So they found out that you were 13 times more likely to position the baby correctly and install the car seat correctly if you were an expectant parent who worked with a car seat technician prior to the birth. So that's huge. That's something that we see here pretty often. We have a lot of expectant parents that will come in and, whether they're being induced tomorrow or next week or next month, or their due date is still 3 months away, they are coming with their seat and multiple vehicles within their family. Our max, I think, car seat event was 4. We had a mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa, all 4 cars, same car seat base, and everybody wanted to try to do this. So the education before birth is really critical. We have a doll there at most of our events so they can learn how to position a child in there. And then once their child comes along, we certainly encourage them to come back if questions still exist. Infant deaths in sitting devices. So this was a 10-year study, pretty dated, but it's still very relevant. Car seats should not be used for sleeping devices. We did find that there are certain instances in NICU settings where the child may be on certain monitors, they're being watched, they have eyes on them, and they need that semi-upright position that a car seat provides. Otherwise, they should not be used for sleeping. So it's really hard to tell a new parent that, hey, I know the baby's sleeping and you just got home and you'd really like to get A, B, or C done, but get them out of that car seat, get them to a safe sleep situation, because even loosening the straps or taking them completely off just kind of resets the child's position, if you will, in the car seat. Nicole talked to you about the angle indicators that are on the manufacturer seats, and those angles are met when they're in the vehicle. They are not going to be met when we sit the car seat on a hard surface. I probably just said everything there, so we can go on. Other messages for caregivers, we went through most of these. Always read the instructions. Nicole and I have been doing this a really long time. And well, maybe I should say I've been doing this a really long time. Nicole is younger than I, so I'll give her some less years on the job. But the manufacturer instructions for seats, even though the seats look similar, could be completely different. So getting eyes on the manufacturer's instructions, knowing that the manufacturers have really great YouTube videos out there now. That was something we didn't have 20 years ago. So we can look at a specific seat, a specific question with that seat, and the YouTube video is probably out there from the manufacturer if it's a common issue, or a certain way that they want their seat to be used. Secondhand car seats, if you don't know the history, you're not going to know the details about how it's been used, where it's been used, and if all the parts are there or it's been in a crash. Nicole talked to you about the recalled or expired seats. Every car seat event, we will check if that seat is expired or recalled, so that parent has that knowledge that we've seen the product labels, we're able to tell them, check our list, and let them know it's okay. So the National Child Passenger Safety Training course that we did mention is a 4-day course. This is really open to anyone. I will tell you, we are now more than ever having a huge request for people to attend these classes. I typically try to provide them within my 10 counties 2 or 3 times a year per my grant. I think we had 5 classes last year. We're up to 4 this year. So the dates are out there. I don't know if the next page has more detailed of the descriptions, but you can see everything you're going to learn about. So from the safety features within your own vehicle to other vehicles out on the road, the law and best practices are shared. Hands on multiple seats and hands-on practice with installing them before an official sign-off, open book tests. It is, I can tell you, most people that have gone through other training find this to be very detailed and almost very exhausting in a way. There's a lot packed into these 4 days. Our 4th day does end with a community car seat check to get real life experience with families in your community. So it's a great way to kind of host a first event and see how you put all this together. Our classes are available on cert.safekids.org. Certainly hit up Nicole if you need more information on where those classes are going to be in this next grant year. This is my agency's website, so pakidstravelsafe.org. We recently revamped the website, so pretty user-friendly. The burgundy box and the orange box both contain information for parents. So the burgundy box is your loan programs. That's if a family is in need of a seat. No income qualifications, no specifics as to who needs a seat. If a seat is needed and that loan program has it, they will provide it along with the education of the use of the seat. Our fitting stations in the orange box are for families that already have a car seat and want to see that their seat is installed properly. So the education, again, we'll check if it's expired, if it's recalled, check the install that the parent provided, work with the parent to educate them on installing and fixing any errors or identifying what they did correctly. But typically, we're always finding at least one error in most of the installs out there. Some of my groups will be on both lists. So they will check car seats as a fitting station, but they also are a loan program if needed. Others are going to be individual on each list and not on both. So that is available to you. You can search by county as you see here. I find that's the easiest method. Certainly Allegheny is my biggest of my 10 counties. So that's where the most resources are going to be. But we want to ensure parents know that not every fire, police, and EMS station provides a service like a fitting station or giving a seat. We really want parents and family members coming to this site and being able to see. We always ensure that our fitting stations have a certified current technician. Nobody has expired. Somebody's in the know there. So if you have families looking for these resources, discourage them from going and showing up to just any old station. Then our resources, we have hopefully everything covered. If you ever find something going on in car seat world that we don't have a handout for, we're glad to invent it. But this is just a slew of our materials. The teddy bear is probably the most notable item. That's going to have your laws and the fines on the front, and then your best practices on the back. Nicole was gracious enough to work with translation services here locally and get that translated into Spanish for us. And she also has a dialogue book as well that covers about 14 other languages. So if you are working with a family that English is not their first language, we do have resources to get them through the laws here in our state. And then that is information for Nicole and I. Again, I mentioned National Child Passenger Safety Week is next week. So I would be remiss if I didn't tell you of two local events. This Saturday, Holiday Park Fire Department is having a community car seat check and other safety vendors from 10 to 1. So that's Holiday Park Fire Department this Saturday from 10 to 1. And then, oh, thank you, Nicole.
Good story.
September 20th, which you see on your screen, we will be at the Pittsburgh Police and Fire Training Center. And that's a partnership with the March of Dimes and AHN to provide community car seat checks for March of Dimes families, as well as community families that need a check. I believe we're going to have possibly some tabling events, as well as bags full of flyers and resources for other community-based agencies. So just two events here. Our state police partners are having their check on the same day. So 2 to 10, state police will be up in Moon. So lots of ways. I would say connect with Tori or Nicole to get a specific location and what's going on for next week, if you have somebody interested or you yourself are interested. But hopefully you guys learned something or remembered something. If you haven't looked at car seats in a while, I hope you saw the change that we've made over the past few years with some of this information. And we're always glad to take any questions now or by email.
Thanks, Nicole and Kristen, for that great presentation. Does anyone have any questions? If not, I'll be sending a follow-up email with some information about what you learned today, as well as the flyer for the car seat check. Our next Live Well Learning Collaborative is going to be on October 17th at 11 a.m. And we're going to revisit the Rethink Your Drink campaign. So be sure to look out for that email as well. If no one has any questions, I leave it open for like another minute or so. Anyone?
If not, thanks for having us today, Tori.
Of course. Yeah,
Thank you,
awesome.
Tori. We must have been so thorough. We just left them silence.
And I will say the car seat training course, like the car seat tech training, is very intense. I'm a tech as well, but it's a really good and educational experience. So if anybody's interested, highly recommend it. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Yep, thanks.
See ya.
Bye.